let everybody know what the process is for today. The first item we'll be dealing with will be the interviews with our 3 candidates, and then the board has to give direction on 3 other items, and then we will be in a position to begin to move forward. The first item, we have a draft that Mr. Barbieri has been working with legal on a contract for the new superintendent. So if there are any comments the board needs to make today, we're going to take a few minutes for that. The second item is to then again reauthorize Mr. Barbieri to work with Ms. Rico and the new superintendent on the contract, which will come back to us next week on the 14th. The next item is an amendment to the contract with Dr. Avosa for some input from the board on where we go from here on setting a date when he will be exiting the district. And then the final item would be if there's anything that's left that we need to deal with that we haven't talked about. So this time, before we start and ask Mr. Mitchell to bring it in, we had agreed to do 2 questions for each board member, and if anybody wants to make any changes to any of that, or are you ready to move forward then with what we had? I see yeses on that one, so we'll go ahead. And I have to say thanks to especially 3 people who worked very, very hard in this process. Ms. Rico and Blair Littlejohn from our legal department have been superb in working through all of the legal issues to make sure we followed every procedure we need to. But then Mrs. Williams and Mr. Mitchell have been so focused on this to do a job that I think all of us should be proud of. So thank you to all of you who've been working on that. Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe you all received another copy of the procedures for the interviews and the follow-up. I don't know if you want me to read through those so everybody hears them, or if you're ready to move in with us calling the first candidate down for the interviews, whatever your pleasure.
Anybody? Okay, it looks like everybody's ready to move forward.
Okay, we'll bring the first candidate down.
And we've allowed an hour, so the public's aware, an hour for the questions from the board members, and we'll be starting with District 1 and working in numerical order for the questions. So, Mrs. Brill.
How is the order of the candidates chosen?
Alphabetical.
I think this is the time we need entertainment, so if anybody would like to sing or dance or anything, we're open for a couple minutes here on that one. So, also, I need to thank Mrs. Bass, who has been working through all the procedural things to get all the agendas ready and be prepared for this. So, thank you again, Mrs. Bass, for everything you did with this process, too.
Silence. It's a secret location.
It can't be disclosed, right?
We don't even know where they.
No, right?
I hope nobody gets lost on their way down there. Oh, in HR. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, while we're in this delay getting the people in, would you like Mr. Mitchell to read the instructions so that everybody
Sure.
understands
Go
the
ahead.
order and such?
Each candidate will have 1 hour formal public interview period with the board. The interview period consists of A, 14 questions with up to 3 minutes response time. B, Additional 1-minute response time for follow-up question from board member questioner. C, additionally, each candidate will have up to 4 minutes for a closing statement. Candidates will be sequestered before the first interview begins until the conclusion of the last interview with no electronic devices permitted. Each board member in district number order will ask one of the selected questions of the candidate, and then if needed, may ask one additional related clarification follow-up question with 1 minute allowed for response time. Process moves to next board member until the first round of 7 questions are asked. We follow the same procedure through the second round of 7 questions, followed by the candidate being given up to 4 minutes to make a closing statement. Any questions?
All right, and the clock will be set so everybody can manage their time and
Yes, sir.
help with that. I think so.
Mr. Chair, point of order.
Mrs. Quinn?
After all of the candidates have finished their interviews, do we as a board do any kind of discussion before our vote?
Yes, there'll be time for any kind of comments, but we've got to vote before we do that, because the concern is that if we do conversations before we vote, this is just to keep the integrity of the voting process in place.
Thank you.
But then the comments will be available after that.